wait to travel, friends. It's me, Anthony, and Lisa, here to tell you about our next destination that we went on called Paphos, Cyprus. A lot of biblical significance here, as this was one of the islands that some of the apostles had visited in their journey. But first off, when we landed here in Paphos, we had to just dock off the port and we had to take a tender, which was actually one of the lifeboats, enclosed, very comfortable actually. Take the lifeboats and tender over to the shore, and then from there we went on drive to our next destination.
And for those of you who don't know what a tender is, whenever you're on a ship, if for some reason the shoreline of the country or island that you're going to isn't deep enough, the ship has to dock further out at sea and then carry the passengers in smaller boats.
That is right. Thank you for making that clarification.
So tell me, first thoughts. You see Cyprus, what did you think?
Actually, I saw a lot of young folks all over the city when we first got there. From what the tour guide was telling us, it's very technology savvy locations throughout Europe in terms of Paphos. Streets were very well maintained, the buildings. You could tell that it was a very forward thinking city, and really liked the topography there. I mean, the landscaping there is, breathtaking.
Yeah, definitely when you're going through the city initially, I looked over at Anthony like, okay, Paphos. Yeah, I wanted to give Paphos like a little kudo. It definitely looks like a cute town. When we went into the countryside, I was blown away. Like, it looks like, and I've never been to Greenland, but it looks like you were in Greenland, how like there's just mountains of green, and it just, the terrain, it just keeps going on and on. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And we actually drove into our first small town to do our excursion. The town was called Phyti. It was the Phyti village, and it was just so endearing when we went to the town, because you see a few older ladies that were sitting on the stoop of their home/store, and their dog was wagging its tail like, oh, we have visitors, like we have visitors coming to see us. And when you get there, they're making actual cloth out of cotton and silk with the old presses where they take their feet and press to do every single line. Yeah, that was pretty amazing to see that textile folk art that they were doing. It was pretty fascinating. One thing we want to mention too is that the guide was telling us that Cyprus is actually split in half, and one part of Cyprus is owned by Greece, the other part is actually owned by Turkey. That was something that we wasn't aware of, that the that island of Cyprus is actually split between those two countries. There was so much art, so much great things to buy there from them that was just natural. And, most people would think that I'm most impressed by the art, but I was more impressed by the familial aspect of how this local village just seems so secure. It seemed like they would roll out the red carpet for anyone that came by. I had to use the restroom, and I asked one of the owners if I could use the restroom. He said, sure. And I followed the lady's granddaughter to her bedroom to use the restroom through her bedroom door, and I was just like, wow, this is just so intimate. Yeah. We took a walk around the village. We walked for several blocks. People would drive in, there's one car every 20 minutes or so, but people would drive in and they wave and smile. It was just a really endearing village. It actually felt like I was back in time. Yeah. Because I've never walked in a little town like that, little town off the beaten path, where the buildings could have been 100+ years old, and at least small little families in there. It was pretty interesting. But the interesting part for me was that they had the greatest secret of all. We're living this hustle bustle, gotta get money, gotta get my next purse or shoes or clothes. And they're just living that pure life where it's we're focused on family, we're doing our art, it's enough to take care of us, and that's all that we need. Yeah. So, where do we go next? Tell us about the wine tour. You are the wine connoisseur. I am definitely not the wine connoisseur, but I think you should pronounce the name of this vineyard that we visited. We went to Voni Panea Winery. I believe that's how it's pronounced. It sounds better than I could have said it. It is a family-run winery with 7 members of their family, and they are doing everything by hand to create this wine.
Crazy.
So what they do is they give you a tour throughout their winery, and then they do a wine tasting. So before we get to the wine tasting, what did you think of the wine cellar, the manufacturing?
It was very good. We've been in a few wineries, like in California, Tampa, etc. But this one was very, very nice. It was nice and cool downstairs. Went down into the basement, around and about. Saw the machinery that they used to do some of the wine, but they use a lot of traditional ways of cutting the grape leaves and pulling. They can't use traditional machinery there to extract all the grapes on the fields because of just the topography. They're on these hills and it's constantly changing in terms of the topography. So it was very interesting to actually go there and see that. And I really liked the wines. We tried many different types of wines there, from light white wines to dark red wines, and then even a dessert wine, which was quite pleasant actually.
So the funny part of this wine tour is that I definitely need to take a class on just describing wine, knowing how to explain if I like it, what I don't like about it. So we were sitting with another couple, and they were huge wine connoisseurs. So they were so kind to teach me a few things, but the first wine from this wine company I loved. It was an Alina wine, which was their dry wine, and it was a white wine, and it was great. But then another one came around that I didn't like as much. So he said, well, what don't you like about it? And I said, I don't know. He's like, is it too light? Is it too bold? Is it too heavy? Is it too oaky? And I was like, I don't know how to explain this. So Anthony said that I sounded like a baby.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was.
Like a baby can't express themselves as to what is wrong with them. And that's how I feel with wine. So if you have a great online wine tutorial or a wine location or a place that I can be well versed on wine, drop that below, because I want to be able to explain why I like or don't like the wine I'm drinking.
Yeah, good point. Me too, though.
That was a great wine experience. Anthony ended up buying 2 of their wines.
Yes, we bought the first wine, which was the
Alina, the dry wine.
And then we bought the second wine, which was the dessert wine, which he indicates can last 100 years.
How long will it last for you?
100 years.
Okay.
Just a little bottle cap sip. 1 year at a time.
There you go. So after we left the winery, we went to a monastery. We've written the name below. It was just so beautiful. I mean, the amount of time and dedication and beauty placed into mosques and churches and monasteries in Europe is just
mind-blowing.
Like in the US, occasionally you say, oh, that church looks nice, or it has a stained glass. But these churches in Europe, I mean, oh my gosh.
Hundreds of years old, 1,000 years plus.
They're just so beautiful. The views that the monastery was on was just breathtaking. You walk in and you can feel just the history and the architecture, the small monastery or the actual room where you go to pray and worship. It was small, but it was still so beautiful.
Yeah, it was very intimate too.
And it just took your breath away. When you go into a monastery or a church, you want to be respectful and quiet. You don't have to tell anyone that. It takes your breath away, where you're just in awe. It makes you almost feel the presence.
Yeah.
So much more of God and the Holy Spirit. It's beautiful. I really suggest that you see these monasteries in Europe. We have a list to recommend for you.
Oh, they also have monks there as well. Too. That was something that we've seen as well too, some monks that were there.
So once we left there, we went to the Cyprus boardwalk. For those of you who live in Florida, I would compare this to a Hollywood, Florida boardwalk. It's very different than the rest of Cyprus that we saw. It's more of tourist focus. There's some hotels there, there's restaurants, there's some shops. But it's kind of like the boardwalks you see where you're like, okay, tourists are coming. Let's trap them in here.
Got them.
Yeah. So we actually had some lunch there on the boardwalk. I'm always going to be honest. It was okay.
Yeah, it's all right.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't great. It was okay. So Cyprus, would you come back?
Maybe not.
For me, I would come back if I wanted to get off the grid.
Yeah, that's true.
If I was like, you know what? I just need to shut the computer, turn off the phone, find myself if I wanted to do that, I would definitely come back to Cyprus.
Yeah, that's true, because when we were in that little village, even one of the folks that were with us said, this is a place, if you wanted to write a book, you wanted to be disconnect, this was the place to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening to our day in Cyprus. Please tell us things that you did in Cyprus or things you've heard about Cyprus. We want to start the communication, and have a great one.
Bye.